I wasn't supposed to be there. Originally, I had booked a quiet weekend cabin in the Rockies, something secluded, peaceful, away from the noise of my regular life. But the reservation fell through last minute. I panicked, searched for alternatives, and found one room left at the Stanley Hotel. Yeah, that Stanley Hotel, the one from The Shining. I booked it without thinking twice. I figured it would just be a quirky stay, something to post about on Instagram. Maybe even joke about how I survived the night. I had no idea what I was walking into. I arrived late afternoon. The air in Estes Park was cold and crisp. The mountains loomed in the distance, the sky clear, too clear. And the hotel? It was grand. White colonial facade, red roof, and that massive wraparound porch. It looked beautiful, too beautiful for the kind of stories it held. As I stepped into the lobby, I noticed something. The chandelier lights flickered, just once. No one else seemed to react, but for some reason, it made me pause. A woman at the front desk greeted me with a smile, the kind of smile you get at old hotels that have seen too much and stopped asking questions. She handed me a key card, room 217. I paused. Wait, isn't this the room? She didn't blink. Stephen King's room, she said calmly, the one that inspired The Shining. You're lucky. People requested years in advance. Lucky. That word clung to my skin like cold sweat. I took the elevator up. It creaked like it hadn't been serviced in decades, a slow, groaning rise that made my ears pop slightly. The hallway on the second floor was dimly lit, carpeted in a deep red that looked more like dried blood under the yellow wall sconces. Room 217 was at the far end. My footsteps echoed in a way that didn't match my pace. I stopped once, sure someone was behind me, but when I turned, nothing. The hall stretched empty, silent. Too silent. I slid the key card, green light. The door opened with a soft click. The room was vintage, antique furniture, a clawfoot tub, Victorian curtains that moved slightly even with the windows shut. Everything had that slightly musty scent, like age had soaked into the walls and never left. I dropped my bag on the bed and sat down. The mattress groaned, not just from my weight. It sounded like a sigh. I told myself I was tired, paranoid. That's what this place does, right? Gets in your head. I turned on the TV, static, no signal. I checked my phone, 0 bars, no Wi-Fi. Fine. I'd planned to unplug anyway, so I did what anyone would do in a supposedly haunted hotel. I grabbed my phone and started taking photos. The chandelier, the hallway mirror, the bed, the old desk. Then I stood in the doorway and took one of the grand staircase. No one was there, just polished wood, golden railings, and light from the massive front windows. That's what I thought anyway. That night, something changed. Around 2:47 a.m., I jolted awake. No noise, no movement, just this overwhelming feeling that someone was watching me. My skin felt clammy. My heart was racing like I'd run miles. And then the cold hit me. Not just a draft, but a chill that started deep in my spine and spread outward like frost on a window pane. I sat up, disoriented. The room was still, too still. The kind of stillness that doesn't belong in a building this old. Not a floorboard creaked, not a pipe moaned. That's when I noticed my phone sitting on the nightstand, screen on, no notifications, just the photo from earlier, the one I took of the staircase. But now, there was something, no, someone in it. A shape, vague, pale, standing midway up the stairs. Female. The long, old-fashioned dress. Her face slightly turned toward the camera. I knew. She hadn't been there when I took it. My breath caught in my throat. I grabbed the phone, trying to zoom in. The image distorted with pixelation, but her features sharpened. Sunken eyes, lips curled in a half smile, or maybe a grimace. It was hard to tell. Then, the room spun. My head throbbed. My stomach turned violently. I rushed to the bathroom and collapsed next to the sink, body shaking, sweat pouring from my forehead, even though I still felt like I was freezing. It was like something was inside me, pulling from me, like I was being drained. I don't know how long I stayed there, but when I finally stumbled back to bed, the first rays of dawn were just starting to peek through the curtains. I didn't sleep again. I didn't leave the hotel the next morning. I should have. I told myself I would, but something, curiosity, fear, a strange compulsion, held me in place. I walked down to the lobby trying to steady my nerves. The woman at the front desk smiled politely. She must have seen something on my face because she leaned forward and said softly, First time staying here? I nodded. She tilted her head. Sometimes, people have vivid dreams their first night. Just the altitude. Don't worry. But I hadn't told her anything. I hadn't mentioned dreams. I hadn't mentioned anything at all. That shook me. I went back to the staircase. In daylight, it looked ordinary. Carpeted, polished railing, large windows letting in soft beams of Colorado sunshine. A cleaning lady was dusting near the landing. I waited until she left. Then I pulled out my phone again, opened the photo. The figure was still there. Same place, same pale dress, same heart-shaped lips, and blank stare. I scanned the stairs in real life. Nothing. Then, just out of instinct, I snapped another picture. When I looked down, I almost dropped the phone. She had moved. She was closer now, 3 steps lower. The angle in the new photo was different. She was now almost at eye level, her head tilted slightly as if curious. That was enough. I turned around, heart pounding, and nearly collided with a man coming around the corner. He was tall, late 50s maybe, dressed in a dark gray coat and a wide-brimmed hat. Something about him felt out of sync. Sorry, I muttered. He didn't say anything, just looked at me. Not confused, not annoyed. More like he recognized me. His voice was gravelly when he finally spoke. "You've seen her, haven't you?" I blinked. "I'm sorry?" He nodded to my phone. "On the stairs. You took a photo." My stomach turned. "Who is she?" I asked. He looked around, then leaned in, lowering his voice. "She's been here a long time, longer than me. Some say she was a guest who never checked out. Others say she was never alive at all." I laughed nervously. "That's a bit dramatic." He didn't smile. "You took her picture. That means she noticed you. If I were you, I'd leave before she follows." Then he turned and walked away. I stood there for a long time, holding the phone in my hand. My ears were ringing. Something had changed. This wasn't just a story anymore. This was my story now. That night, I didn't sleep. I couldn't. The warning from the man in the hat repeated in my mind like an echo. If I were you, I'd leave before she follows. I sat up in bed with the lights on, watching the shadows shift with every flicker of the antique chandelier above. The Stanley Hotel was quiet, unnervingly so. The kind of quiet where you start to hear your own pulse in your ears. Then came the noise, a soft creak. It came from the hallway. My room was on the 3rd floor, the same floor where people often claim to hear children running, laughter echoing from empty rooms, and, more recently, the same floor where I had taken that picture. I told myself it was nothing. The floorboards were old, maybe another guest. But then I heard it again. Creak, creak, step by step, closer this time. I slowly grabbed my phone and opened the camera, setting it to video mode. I moved toward the door, heart pounding so hard I could barely breathe. I didn't want to open it, but I had to. At exactly 2:14 a.m., I unlocked the door and cracked it open just enough to peek through. The hallway was empty, but cold. Ice cold. Like all the warmth had been vacuumed out. I stepped out with the camera pointed down the corridor. Every instinct told me to stop, to go back. But I kept walking, barefoot, in a hotel t-shirt, barely able to breathe. Suddenly, my phone screen flickered, and then, through the lens, I saw her. She was standing near the end of the hallway. Blonde hair, that red dress, the face, pale, still, perfect. But the worst part? She wasn't standing on the floor. She was floating, just an inch above it. I pulled the phone away from my face. Nothing. The hallway was empty again. I looked back at the screen. She was still there, only visible through the camera. She started moving, gliding toward me. Not fast, not slow, just inevitable. I ran, back to my room, slammed the door, locked it, pulled the desk in front of it, then sat on the bed shaking. I checked the footage, and she was there, frame by frame, every step, every movement. But here's what chilled me to my bones. In the last frame before I ran, the doll woman lifted her hand and pointed directly at me. Not at the phone. At me. The next morning, I was still in the same spot on the bed, back pressed against the headboard, desk jammed against the door, eyes wide open, and the lights still burning. I hadn't slept. I didn't dare. At 6:27 a.m., the light outside finally started to shift. Morning had arrived. I waited another 15 minutes before finally removing the desk and peeking out the door. No one in the hallway. Nothing on the carpet. Silence. I packed my bags in 5 minutes. Before leaving, I took one last look at the phone, at the final frame of that recording. The floating woman, the red dress, and that single pale finger pointed straight at me. But something had changed in the image. In the far background, almost hidden in the grain of the video, was another figure. This one had red hair. I drove for hours that morning, far past Estes Park. I didn't know where I was going, just away. But the signs kept coming. At a gas station 50 miles out, I went to use the restroom, and there, hanging above the toilet stall door, was a poster for a small antique fair. One word hit me in the chest like a sledgehammer. Doll showcase. Coincidence? Maybe. But I didn't believe in coincidence anymore. I followed the directions. The fair was being held at an old exhibition barn in Loveland. Inside, the air smelled like mothballs and nostalgia. Rows of dusty booths, vendors selling porcelain, lace, rusted toys. The kind of place time forgot. I wandered like I was being pulled, and then I found her. In the corner, beneath a yellowing display tent, was a table labeled Estate Doll Collection, all originals. Sitting front and center were two dolls, one with blonde hair, one with brown, identical to mine, and between them, a third doll. Red hair, red dress, same face, heart-shaped lips, stark white skin, same handmade lace, same black shoes. I felt cold again, that same cold from the hallway. I asked the seller where he got them. He looked me straight in the eye and said, "They came from a box dropped off anonymously last week. No label, no note." I asked how much. He just smiled. "You can take her," he said. "They've been waiting for you." The drive home was a blur. My hands were trembling on the wheel the whole time. I placed the red-haired doll on the seat next to me, and the two others were already back at the house, still sealed inside my display cabinet. As I entered my home, the air felt different, charged, almost like the moment before a thunderstorm. I set the third doll down on the table, went to get the other two, and placed them all side by side. That's when the lights flickered, all at once, throughout the entire house. Then, silence. Then, a whisper. It wasn't in my ears. It was inside my head. "Thank you." I didn't sleep that night, not because I was afraid, because I couldn't. The moment I placed the third doll next to the other two, it felt like something clicked, like a door had been unlocked in a part of the world I wasn't meant to access. All three dolls sat on the mantel in complete silence. Blonde, brunette, redhead. They weren't touching, but it felt like they were connected, like invisible strings tied them together. I stared at them for hours, and just as the clock hit 3 a.m., the house went completely dark. Lights off, thermostat dead, phone no signal. The silence was complete. Then came the whisper, not from the dolls, from inside the walls. "We are together." I stood frozen. The air was thick, like I was underwater. Every breath felt like I was inhaling syrup. I reached for my flashlight, clicked it on, and aimed it at the dolls. They were still there, but something had changed. Their heads were all turned, and now they were facing me. I didn't move, didn't blink. Then, all at once, a deep cracking sound echoed from the kitchen, like wood snapping under pressure. Then footsteps, software measured, barefoot. I turned the flashlight toward the hallway, and that's when I saw her. Not the dolls, her. She was tall, thin, dressed in the same deep red. Hair long and dark, with streaks of red fire curling through it. Her eyes were hollow, like carved from candle wax. Her mouth was sewn shut, literally, with black thread, and she was floating. No feet, just movement, smooth and slow, like water sliding across a surface. She reached the doorway, stopped, tilted her head at me, and pointed at the dolls. The whisper returned, this time clearer, layered with three distinct voices, the blonde, the brunette, and the redhead, all speaking in unison. "You brought her back." The woman in the hallway raised one hand and spread her fingers. Then, the dolls on the mantel began to tremble, not shake, tremble, like something inside them was trying to get out. Then, a burst of cold wind rushed through the room, knocking over books, chairs, the lamp. My flashlight went out, and in that moment of total darkness, I felt her hand on my shoulder, cold, thin, real. I turned around, swinging the light back on. Nothing, no figure, no movement, no dolls. The mantel was empty.
The mantel was empty. I stood there, frozen, the silence now heavier than it had ever been. The dolls were gone. The woman was gone. But the cold remained, a deep, penetrating chill that sat in my bones and refused to leave. I didn't know what to do, so I did the only thing I could think of. I went back to the Stanley Hotel. It was just after sunrise when I arrived. The front desk clerk was different this time, younger, distracted, but polite. I asked him one question. "Do you have any records on the woman from room 217? He raised an eyebrow. "You mean the Stephen King stuff?" I shook my head. "Before that, before the stories, before the fame." He hesitated, then disappeared into a back office. A few minutes later, he returned with a worn binder, yellowed pages, handwritten logs. Most of it was illegible, until he stopped at one entry, 1911, June 25th, room 217. The name listed was Clara Wexler. Clara had been a housekeeper, young, unmarried, and, as the legend went, a bit of an oddity in the town. People whispered about her, said she was into spiritualism, occult rituals, spent her nights sewing strange dolls in silence, each one representing a different part of her fractured personality. According to the log, she'd been lighting lanterns in room 217 when a gas leak caused a small explosion. Clara survived the blast, but she was never the same after. She refused to leave the room, kept muttering things no one understood, until one day, she vanished. The only thing left behind? 3 dolls, each one placed perfectly on the bed. Blonde, brunette, and redhead. The manager of the hotel at the time dismissed it as nonsense, gave the dolls away to a church thrift donation, and from there, the trail went cold. Until now, until me. I left the hotel in a daze. I had answers, but they weren't comforting. Clara hadn't died in the room. She'd split herself, put her soul into those dolls, and when I found them all, when I brought them back together, I gave her form again. I gave her body again. That night, I burned the cabinet, the dolls, everything they touched. The flames roared higher than they should have, screamed louder than wood should burn. But I watched until nothing remained, not even ash. But here's the thing, I still hear them. Sometimes, late at night, when the lights flicker, a whisper inside the walls. You brought her back. It should have ended there. The dolls burned, the house cleansed, the whispers silenced. But Clara didn't leave. She adapted. It started subtly. The video files on my phone, all of them, began glitching. I'd open a selfie, and for a split second, I'd see something in the background. A shadow, a flicker of red fabric, a pair of glassy eyes. At first I thought I was paranoid, traumatized, just seeing things. But then it escalated. One night, while editing a photo from my trip to the Stanley for a blog post, my screen turned black, just for a second. When the image returned, Clara's face was staring back at me. Not the doll, not the old waxy version. A full digital reconstruction of the woman I saw in the hallway, threaded lips, hollow eyes, and behind her, the 3 dolls lined up like judges. My phone began overheating, apps crashing, emails sending themselves. Then I received one from my own address. Subject line, "You brought her back." No message, just a photo attachment. I hesitated, but clicked it open. It was a screenshot of my home screen, not from the past, from right now. The exact time, the exact battery percentage. But here's the part that nearly made me scream. At the top of the screen, in the front camera view, was her, looking over my shoulder. I tried everything. New phone, factory reset, data wipe, nothing worked. Clara had gone digital. The dolls were vessels, yes, but now the photos, the videos, the memory of them, it was enough. She'd crossed over. And then I noticed something far worse. People who had seen my post, people who messaged me about the dolls, started reporting their own sightings. I saw her on my stairs. My Alexa turned on by itself and whispered in 3 voices. I had a dream of a woman in red, and now my daughter won't go near her dolls. Clara wasn't just haunting me anymore. She was spreading, through images, through stories, through screens. This is where I realized something terrifying. You're not safe either. If you've watched this far, if you've looked at the photos, if you've imagined her face, she's seen you. And Clara doesn't forget the ones who brought her back. It's been 6 months. I don't go thrifting anymore. I don't take photos. I don't keep mirrors uncovered at night. Because Clara's face appears when I least expect it. On blank monitors, in reflections, in silence. She doesn't knock. She doesn't scream. She simply watches, Last week, I found a note on my desk. No one had been in my house. I live alone. The note was handwritten in red ink, folded once, and placed directly beneath my keyboard. It read, "She lives here now." No signature, no smudges, no fingerprints, just that one line. And underneath it, 3 dots, drawn with what looked like black thread. I've started hearing footsteps again. Always 3. Software, then silence. When I wake up, sometimes the door to my display case is open, but I destroyed it, didn't I? Maybe that's the trick. Maybe Clara was never in the dolls to begin with. Maybe she needed someone to believe, to complete her, to give her presence, to make her real. And if that's true, if stories carry power, then she's not just in my house anymore, she's in yours too. Right now, behind you, watching as you finish this story. So if your lights flicker tonight, if your phone screen distorts, if you hear footsteps that stop too soon, don't say her name, don't speak to her, and whatever you do, don't take her picture. If this story gave you chills, subscribe to this channel, but only if you're brave enough for what comes next. Like the video so we know you made it out, and comment below, would you keep the red-haired doll